Hey, this is Mikey with another After Effects tutorial, and in this video I'm going to show you how to do this animated logo. Now this is an exciting tutorial because I'm working with TastyTuts.com, and they have their own YouTube channel, and they specialize in graphic design, so Illustrator, Photoshop, even InDesign. And he's launching a brand new series of Illustrator tutorials, and he wanted to do a new logo. So we were kind of talking back and forth, and I'm like, okay, how about you design the logo and I'll animate the logo? And so this is what we came up with. He's going to be using this on all of his videos, so really kind of a cool thing. And if you want to learn more about graphic design, I highly recommend you go subscribe to his channel. Just head on over there. There's a link in the description, or you can go to youtube.com/TastyTuts and head on over there and say that Mikey sent you. So it's going to be a long tutorial, and so I'm going to try to break it down into parts. It's going to be all in one video, but we're going to take it a part at a time. First part we're going to talk about is just creating this spinning cube. The next part is going to be setting up this final look with the black hexagon and the triangle logo. And then the third part is the transition in between the two of them. So let's get started. So here's my existing project file that I have for the original, but we're going to create our new one. So just Command N, Tasty Logo, click OK. I have it 10 seconds long. And first let's build the cube. So to do this, I'm going to just add a new solid. Let's make it 400 by 400 pixels. And I'm going to grab just the color right off of my video. I just use the eyedropper tool and I grab the video, which is here onto the side. That's why you didn't see it. Click OK. Now I'm going to duplicate this so there's 6 of them. Let's turn them all 3D. And then I'm going to highlight them all, hit P. Now I need to distribute them into different 3D space. So these first two, I'm going to go 200 in Z space, negative 200. Then this one I'm going to go 1160, then 760, and I'm just hitting tab to go through them. And then here we're going 740 and 340. And you can see they all moved around. Now these middle two, I'm going to highlight them, hit R, and let's just change the Y rotation to 90. And then these last two, highlight them, hit R, let's change the X rotation to 90. And then here we have a basic cube. I'm going to take this, highlight them all, pre-compose. Let's call this cube. I'm going to turn this layer 3D and then collapse the transformations. Now when I come in here, I can rotate this and I've got a whole 3D cube. I do want to make sure that all these colors are correct. So let's go back into this. And just so I can see what I'm doing, I'm going to temporarily bring in a camera. Click OK. And as I highlight these different layers, you can see which ones they are. So I'm going to bring the front 3 facing ones to the top. So this one's in the back, so I'm going to bring it to the bottom. That one's in the front. That one's in the back. Bring it to the bottom. Front. That one's in the back. Bring it to the bottom. So here are my front 3. Here are my back 3. So this one, we can see here, is blue, needs to be blue, top needs to be yellow, left needs to be magenta. So let's just find the right one. That's the left one, so Command-Shift-Y brings up my solid settings. I'm going to grab the magenta color. Command-Shift-Y brings up the solid settings, and let's grab the yellow color. Now let's do some of this rotating, and you can see it rotates 2 over, so that orange was at the bottom, now it's at the top, and that green was in the back, now it's in the front. So the back one, which is right there, is the green, so Command-Shift-Y, let's grab the green color, and then that bottom one was the orange color. And that means this last one is the purple color. Okay, so let's go ahead and take that camera off because we don't need it anymore. Let's go back into the Tasty logo, and I want to orient this cube so it's in the right position. So to do that, I'm going to take the Y rotation and I'm going to go -45, and the X rotation, I'm going to go 35, and that's pretty much there. You can see it's right in the middle, and it's the same as how that looks, except for this has a little bit of perspective to it, and we need to fix that. So how to do that is, let's go to a new camera, and you would say, oh, let's just have a small angle of view, and we can try that, and it looks to straighten it out pretty good. The only problem is when we start to rotate, you can see it doesn't hold together very well, and you can see the blue is kind of showing through. So let's delete that camera. Let's add a new camera, and let's set this to 12. It's not perfect, but as I rotate, everything holds together a lot better. So next we want to do is add a stroke to this. So we go to Layer, Layer Styles, Stroke. Let's set the stroke to black, and let's set the size to about 12 pixels. It's looking about right. Okay, now in this example, when it hit right there, so it was really close, and then it flies down in and it hits, and we got orange, purple, and blue. So we got blue here, so we need to now rotate to orange, purple, and blue. So let's go 180 degrees, and that hits just after 1 second. So let's come up here to about 1 second and a few frames, and this is where I want to keyframe everything because this is how I want it to be. So let's go in and keyframe. I don't know what I'm going to change, if it's scale or position. I'm just going to keyframe everything because I know this is how I want it to be at this point. And then let's go back to the beginning, and let's do scale. Let's change the orientation, and let's scale that up so it fills the frame. And let's quickly preview through this, see what it looks like. Okay, looking pretty good. So we're gonna, for this first part, we're gonna get through this first animation. So as it hits, then there's a little bit, and we'll do this green thing after we do the spin first. So it hits, then it spins so that the magenta is there. So it hits, and I'm going to bring this resolution down and then move forward a little bit. Keyframe the rotation. And when it spins, we want it to kind of feel a little bit more organic. So I'm going to zoom in, and that's at 135, and that's how we want it to end. But we want it to kind of overshoot. So I'm going to go forward a couple of frames, and I'm just going to 140, a couple of frames forward, 130, a couple of frames forward, 137, and then 135. This one's a little bit too much, so let's go to 135 on that. Perfect. Now the next one, it spins forward. And as I come in here, and that's not the way I want it to spin. That's not the way I want it to spin. And neither is this way. So how do I get it to spin forward? And there's a little trick you can do, and it's bringing in another null object. So let's go to Layer, New, Null Object. Let's make that 3D. Let's come into the rotation, and I need to set this up the same way. So 35 degrees here, 45 degrees there. Now, if we parent this to the null object, what I can do is now rotate the Z rotation full 180 degrees, go forward, and we're going to do the same bounce technique that we did before. And I think this needs to spin a little bit slower. All right, so there is our 2 spins. Now, let's add in what we had here, which was this kind of this yellow background that shoots out. And how I want to do that is with a shape layer. So I'm going to grab my shape layer, make sure it's on polygon tool. Let's draw a polygon, whatever, it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to come into the Polystar settings in the content. Let's set that to 6-sided. Let's set the rotation here to 0. Let's go into the transform, make sure it is centered with the position. And let's bring the radius down so it's just filling the square. I'm going to take this, let's call this hex. I'm going to bring it down to the bottom. What I want to do is right when it lands, I'm going to cut this, so Option left bracket on the keyboard. And I'm going to duplicate this. If we saw in here, we've got green, blue, yellow. But then there's a black square, so we need 4 of them. So I'm going to duplicate this 4 times. Green. I'm just going to label these. Blue, yellow, and black. So this green one, let's go in and let's change the color to the right color of green. Click OK. And as it hits, I'm just going to simply scale the shape. And let's go forward to the second hit, which is right here. And this one is blue, so I'm going to Option left bracket, so it starts here. And let's keyframe the scale. And then we can actually come in and just copy the keyframes from the scale down here, paste it onto this one. Let's make sure we change the right color. Click OK. Here's the next hit. Option left bracket. Paste in the scale. And this one is yellow, so it's already the right color. And then this last one, we need to turn this one black. So let's see what we have so far. Now we also do need to add a background solid that is just white. This will go in the very back. So here we are at the beginning. All right, now is the fun part. This is when we need to transition it into the other logo. And for reference, here's the logo. And let's kind of scale this up to fit. Okay. So that's the logo we're going to transition it into. So if I come in here and hide the cube, you can see that's why I need that black hexagon. We do need to create this triangle logo. Let's go in here, bring this full, and I want to create this out of shape layers. And so first, let's go in, make sure nothing is selected, and let's grab the pen tool, and I'm just going to quickly, not too exact, grab that blue. And let's make sure it's the right color. Click OK. Now while we're still here, let's get the magenta. And I'm just doing this really rough. I'm going to come in here and change it later. Grab the fill color. Make sure it's the right color of pink magenta. And then the last one is the yellow, so make sure that layer is still selected. And let's get yellow. Now that we have those there, I'm going to go ahead and take this shape layer and kind of bring the opacity down. And let's zoom in. Get my selection tool. Click on Contents. I'm going to start with shape 1, and I'm just going to go in really close and line everything up. So that's looking pretty good. Let me zoom out here. I'm going to go ahead and take this layer and delete it. Okay, now let's make sure everything's kind of lined up. Let's turn this cube back on, and it's looking pretty good so far. So before I go too much further, I do want to come in and kind of keyframe everything, because at a certain point, this is how it's going to end up. And that's kind of right here at about 3.5 seconds. So let's go just up to 3.5 seconds. And I want to keyframe all of this, especially with this shape layer. Let's actually name the shape layer logo triangle. And let's come in to the contents, keyframe the path. Okay. Now, I also do want to keyframe the rotation. So all the paths and the rotation, I need to keyframe that at that point. Now, before that, we need to transition at one point from this into the cube, which I had turned off. So from the cube into this. And if we look at the original, so we have the cube, and it kind of shrinks down and it reveals the black hexagon, and then it does this twisty thing into the triangle. So let's work on the reveal. So it hits right here, and then we need it to reveal into the black hexagon. So let's come in to the cube, and this is where we scale it down. So I'm going to hit scale, and let's scale it down. In order to know how far to scale it down, I actually need to come in here and rotate this triangle 180 degrees. And change the anchor point. And I've almost got it scaled to the right size, but let's come in here and get it right to where we want it. So I'm just adjusting the anchor point and then the scale. Looks like we need to do about 61.5. Okay. So this is kind of looking a little bit weird right now. That's because I have both of them playing at the same time. But you can see how it's starting to look like the beginning of this. So come through, flies in, and it scales down. And at this point, when it scales down, now with time for the transition. So it transitions from the square into the triangle. And how we do that is by taking this triangle, and we need to make it into the square. So if I hit U, it brings up all my keyframes. And so I want to take these paths and I want to adjust them. So I want to take, let's start with the yellow, and I want to take this edge right here, and I want to make it this top edge like that. And then I'm just going to kind of bring all of them right there, and then as it twists out, you can see it's going to turn into the triangle. Now the same thing with the blue. I want to take this edge right here and make it that edge right there. So let's, and I'm not being perfectly exact because I'm going to come in, zoom in later and fix this. And then with the magenta, okay. And as we scroll through it, you can see how that's turning into the triangle. So let's make sure we get in really close and get this perfect. Okay. And what I want to do is I want to transition from the cube to this triangle right at this point. So I'm gonna cut this, and then I'm going to also cut the cube. And if I zoom in, you can see that they overlap by 1 frame, and I don't want that, so I'm going to bring this back here. Now, this transition is happening a little bit too soon, so I'm going to take all of these, move it. So there's a little bit of a space in between. Now, what I want to do is I want to easy ease these. So just right click, Keyframe Assistant, easy ease. And now let's go into the graph editor. And let's give it a nice. And maybe let's get out of the graph. Maybe that's just a little bit too fast. So I can come in, extend that out a little bit. Okay. Let's just make sure that my logo is matching up. And it actually doesn't quite match up. I have it in the wrong spot, and that's easy to fix. So what I need to do is on this triangle, I'm going to come into position, keyframe the position, and then here at the end, it needs to come down so it lines up. And this as well needs to be easy ease. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Shrink everything down. Let's take a look at it. Let's do a quick render, and you can see this in full speed. Okay, so here is the finished look. So long, complicated tutorial, but remember how we took it in parts. So we made the cube, then we built this triangle, and then we did the transition. And some little tricks that we have here is it's not the same cube that is transitioning into the triangle as it was that's spinning up here. So this one up here is an actual 3D cube that we built, and then this cube is a shape layer cube that then transitions into this triangle. So now also, in order to create this cube to make it look straight and like a shape layer cube, we need to have in this camera, and we have to have it kind of set at a very small field of view, but you can't go too small because as we notice that it kind of goes a little bit crazy. I also notice I have the wrong color for the yellow here, so I can come in here. Let's grab this. Okay, fix that yellow. So I know this was kind of a long and a little bit complicated tutorial. Hopefully I stepped you through it. Please, 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 if you have any questions, questions about how this was done, just go ahead and ask them in the comments below. If you have any ideas of maybe tips or tricks on how to make this go a little bit more smoothly, I'd like to hear them as well. And again, something like this, it's easy to take in parts. So make sure you break it up into what parts you're going to do at what time. Always, if you know at a certain point of time that this is how you want everything to be, that's a good time to keyframe everything. So if you do make any changes, you know at that point it's going to get back to normal. So hopefully this wasn't too long. Hopefully it wasn't too confusing for you. Thank you very much for watching, and really go check out TastyTuts.com. Really great website, really great tutorials, and I'm excited to be working with him. And thanks for watching. See you next time.